Hi, welcome back. During the past days, I've been thinking and wondering about the future of developer experience. And some time ago, I stumbled upon the idea of no code and low code platforms and so on. And I had a couple of days free and I took a deeper dive in the subject. And here's my thoughts on that. So, I decided to name this episode as Emerging Drag and Drop Developer Profile and Developer Experience, and what I actually mean with it and what it actually means for companies is the topic for today. Before we go into the topic, remember the good and, by the way, excellent open resource on developer experience 100daysdx.com. Take a look at it and you'll probably learn something new. Here's the claim. I read from Gartner's some Gartner paper that the market demand for mobile application development services will grow at least 5 times faster than the professional capacity is to deliver them. So we are 5 times too slow. And this is not a news to anyone that we are competing about the highly skilled developers and even the mediocre developers. We need more developers to actually fulfill the needs and build the applications for the business users. And we're not able to do it now with the current model. Then the big question is how many developers are there? Accurate number is impossible to give, but I found a slash data report, and they use a lot of sources to estimate the actual developer population, and their guesstimate is that it's around 19 million, and in global level, and out of that 19 million, around 13 million are professional software developers, and rest of them are hobby developers and so on. But that's the guesstimate. So we're talking about that 19 million developers should actually fulfill the needs of the application development, and that's quite impossible. Yeah, the trend about the developer population is that it's growing, and the growth has been increasing lately, but still that growth is quite it's not enough to fulfill the needs of the business. So we need more developers than we can actually have at the moment. And so in brief, we need more developers to create the applications, and at the same time we have constant lack of good developers, and training the developers, it takes time and it's not that easy often, and not all of us can be developers. It's something that you either are or you don't. It's not something you actually become a great developer by doing a lot of exercises and learning. You can become a developer by doing it, but you're not gonna be the great developer if you don't have a talent for it. That's my claim. Then at the same time, business requires us to develop the applications faster and faster because time to market matters. There's a fierce competition in the marketplaces and markets for the applications, and often the first one grabs the most of the revenue in the markets. But at the same time, not all the applications needs to be so complex as we seem to think. So, how about this? That let's fast forward some years to 2025. I need a simple application to do one thing, and with current way of doing it with the APIs and development stacks and all the Azure environments and so on, I can easily end up in the situation that I give up because of lacking semicolon. So to actually do a simple application at the moment, I actually need to learn how APIs work, read shitload of API documentation possibly, and some guides, and so on. I need to set up the development stack in my computer or somewhere else. I probably would like to have, I would like to avoid the Stack Overflow copy-paste effect, which is normally and often causing some kind of security problems or something, other things. I actually don't want to do it, but now I need to learn programming quite in depth instead of using the Stack Overflow approach. I need to learn how to deploy to Azure, AWS, Heroku, or some other place. And most likely I will end up debugging my crappy code for 80% of my time to do one simple application, which actually does one thing. So this doesn't seem good to me. So the answer to the problem also identified by Gartner and other Forrester and those research organizations and some scholars as well and thinkers, that the no-code / low-code platforms could be the solution. And they actually allow programmers and non-programmers to create any applications with help of great graphical user interfaces and configurations instead of traditional computer programming, which was the example in the previous slide. The difference between no-code and low-code is quite fuzzy, but briefly said, the no-code platforms are accessible to any of the end business users, and the low-code require developers some knowledge of coding languages, and then they can actually do the stuff. But no-code is just point and click or drag and drop, as was the title of the today's episode. Anyway, these low-code, no-code platforms are said to be the solution. And we don't need to go any complex world yet. If you have heard about Zapier, it's used by developers, kids, teachers, marketing people, basically everyone, and they actually do simple everyday automations with it. It's an awesome tool. I use it for various tasks, and it's mostly no-code platform, because to do the basic stuff you don't need to do any programming. You don't need to know anything about programming languages or anything like that. So it's easy to use for everyone, basically, for layman use. But it actually offers as an extension the low-code platform approach, in which you actually need to write some code, and it's most likely for the hobby developer plus level developers, and obviously the skilled developers can use it efficiently as well. But it's like it contains both of the elements of no-code and low-code platforms. And this is something I hope this actually reminds you of something familiar before we go any more deeper. Okay, the Gartner report from 2019 says that by 2024, low-code application development will be responsible for more than 65% of application development activity. Okay, so 35% of development activity will be based on the old way of doing. Remember, setting up the stack, deploying to Azure, debugging for 80% of your time. 65% is going to be something else, and it's going to be accomplished with help of the low-code, no-code platforms. Okay, in the same report it says that again to 2024, 3/4 of large enterprises will be using at least 4 low-code development tools for both IT application development and citizen development initiatives. That's quite an interesting claim. Okay, this sounds pretty good. But is it just fantasy and daydreaming of something big and better? And will it actually solve the problems? And how close to reality are we with the platforms, low code, no code? Well, again, I took the Gartner's approach, and they have a magic quadrant for enterprise low code application platforms. And if you look at it in the leaders box, you see some familiar names of these big giants, huge players like Salesforce and Microsoft, and then some probably not so well-known companies as well. But one of the opportunities is to actually piggyback with the growth of these giants, and that's one good option. Then the big question is, what does that circle, for example, for Salesforce, actually in reality mean? Why are they in there? Why are they in the leaders box? Well, that's what I looked at next. And I found that the Salesforce approach to low code is that it's data centric, it's cloud based, cross platform support, it's drag and drop or point and click tool, and it's flexible. That's the principles how they have built their own the Lightning platform, no code or actually low code platform for application development. And it didn't come from out of the blue. If you followed the business news during the last years, you noticed that actually Salesforce acquired MuleSoft for $6.5 billion, and MuleSoft is an integration platform. Again, data-centric and integration platform. Somehow those seem to be in the same sentence, in the same ball game. 2019, Salesforce acquired Tableau for $15.3 billion. And if you know what Tableau is, it's about analyzing big data and visualizing it, among other things. So again, data. And if I'm not saying that both of these acquirers are related to the Lightning platform, which is Salesforce's low-code platform. But somehow it feels that somehow these are at least somewhat connected to the same idea. But the important thing is that according to Salesforce, 79% of the Salesforce customers use the apps made with low-code platform to boost their own business. 79%. So 21% of the customers don't use it and rely on the old way of building their own applications. What it means, huge amount of the developers, more developers, that actually the use of low-code, no-code platforms will actually increase the amount of available developers for us. And it not just the hardcore developers, as we have known what is included in developers in general. Apps are created faster, yes, probably, and my guess is that we still might see a lot of crappy applications in the beginning, at least. But in the future, it actually will. The quality will probably increase, but in the beginning, it's like a crappy applications built by basically everyone who have no idea of actually building any kind of applications. So those people who actually have been building applications with the old school way probably are efficient also with low-code platforms. So I just wanted to make some visualizations that if we put to access the complexity of an application, and on the other axis the available population, and we put the traditional developers, which the amount of those is the 19 million worldwide, in one circle, and the citizen developers. By the way, this citizen developer is something that the Gartner uses in their own rhetorics. But anyway, it's basically some kind of business user who's creating applications with the low code. And I don't know how many of those are. I put there a number 500 plus million worldwide. It could be 1 billion, I don't know. But anyway, it's more than the traditional developers. So the traditional developers can build more complex and probably to some extent more efficient applications. But the citizen developers, they can actually build more applications, and there's a bigger population which actually can do the applications and develop the applications. But their complexity is probably lower. And if you turn it if you change the axis topics a little bit to speed of development and available population again, I don't know. Possibly the developers, traditional developers, the development speed is low, as it was discussed, and the population is small. And compared to the citizen developers, where the population is bigger, and they use the low-code, no-code platforms, it is claimed that you can build applications 8 times faster with the low-code platforms. Probably true, but again, the complexity at this moment probably isn't that big or wide compared to traditional way of building applications, which basically relies currently on APIs, code libraries, and traditional integrated development environments. Then somehow I'm always interested about the timeline and what's going on in the software development, and I kind of want to see some kind of periods and get an understanding of where we came from, and to understand make some kind of guesstimates that where we are going towards, because if you don't know the history, it's like hard to know what's gonna happen, or even suggest that what's gonna happen next. So around 1990, before the millennium started, we had the open source, which was more like a glue period, when you actually took some open source components and you glued the components together with your own code. And you probably used traditional application or framework APIs to do that, if those were available. Otherwise, you were forced to actually do everything in the code level hard way. But the APIs were there, but they're not accessible out in any kind of HTTP protocol or anything like that. But okay, open source started it, and then started around the 2000 when basically the Roy Fielding wrote his and published his REST related dissertation, and then started the LEGO period, and the web APIs actually emerged more and more. Of course, the SOAP APIs came earlier, but then the REST APIs followed, and really, when the REST APIs actually came along, then the web API scene actually skyrocketed, and that's why I put that the LEGO period started. And the LEGO is that you can combine the functions and data available via the web APIs in your applications, like putting Lego blocks together. and that's it. But okay, APIs came along, and then 2010 NPM was established, and the area of code libraries started to really blossom, and that's the component period. A lot of these code libraries are built on top of the web APIs or even some framework APIs, and code libraries actually raise the abstraction level from the APIs and make it easier to use inside your own application, the functions and data available from the APIs. But again, this is a component period. And what happens next? All these are like the traditional developer areas. So you need to know about programming languages to actually use any of these. The next thing is that we are going to have this drag and drop period, which is based on the no-code, low-code platforms. And again, no-code is the one that actually you don't need to know anything about programming languages, and low-code you need to know some basic elements, basic stuff, but nothing in depth. Okay, so basically it might be that 2025 we are actually living the period of drag and drop in application development. So what about the traditional developer experience and traditional way of building applications? That's the old school DX in this picture, where the axis are the skills and the time on the bottom, and then I have the no-code, low-code DX as an alternative. The old school DX is not gonna vanish. It's not gonna go anywhere, but the position and significance of it will actually change. And the no-code, low-code DX is gonna rise more and more, and at some point they will cross each other. And the bigger DX, the more significant DX is actually the one that you build around the low-code, no-code platforms, not around APIs, not around libraries. So this is the hypothesis and my guesstimate, and you have a roughly set about 4 years time to actually prepare your company, prepare your products, and prepare your business for this change. So what it means for DX or DX-wise, the ease of use becomes more important. The GUI, graphical user interface, significance will rise, and the CLI, which is the loved interface type for the traditional developers, and it will actually drop. And the drag and drop features are gonna be the most important, one of the most important elements of the ease of use. The people who actually will be using the low-code, no-code platforms are the business people and other areas or other experts around the business layers. So they will actually learn basic level programming skills by taking some courses, and they are not the traditional developers. They know just basic stuff. They can do some minor things with the programming languages, and some of them can't even do that. But anyway, they will not be fiddling around with the invented here code. They will reuse a lot of components, and by dragging and dropping and possibly changing some kind of configuration in the component. And the ready-made functions, components, recipes become more and more important all the time. So this is a shift in the DX. I'm not sure, should we even talk about DX here, or should this phenomenon have some kind of different term so that we don't mix it with the traditional DX as we see it now. But okay, what it means for the company or companies, traditional DX is still important, depending of your business and your own products and everything, because actually that old school DX enables the tools development for or in the no and low code platforms. So your application, your DX is not in vain, because the next layer is built on top of that layer anyway. So we need that old school DX anyway. You could actually piggyback, as I mentioned, the big giants, because they are data driven, as it was discussed earlier. So you could actually build some kind of feeds for the low code and no code platforms that are owned by some other companies. You could, for example, become a trusted data provider. And again, remember that data is the cornerstone of, for example, Salesforce's approach in the Lightning platform development than the business idea. And you could start building your own low-code solution on top of your own platform. And keep in mind that, again, here it's a different kind of DX and a different kind of marketing approach again, and different kind of audience compared to the traditional DX, which is more like a business to developer marketing, and which is different from business to consumer marketing. So we're kind of returning back to the business to business marketing, and since the users of the low code no code platforms are the business people or other experts near the business layer anyway. But in the picture you can see that the traditional DX is on the right, and that highly customized solutions application development is gonna continue anyway. And there you need the old traditional DX and with the always up-to-date API documentations and awesome guides that actually tell the developer how the APIs work, and even the code libraries built on top of the APIs. So that's not gonna go away. But there's gonna be an additional track which is on the left in the picture, where you have some kind of platform possibly, and which is connected to some kind of data sources and offering the data easily via the APIs to the applications. And in there you will have the low code platforms for the business oriented users. And in the middle between the platform and the low code platform is the traditional developer experience again. But above that is the drag and drop developer experience, which is the new thing. Is it gonna be called even a developer experience? I don't know. But this is gonna happen most likely during the next 4 or 5 years. So that was the idea, and the emerging drag and drop developer profile and developer experience. We are witnessing now some kind of change in the application development, because we don't have enough developers, and partly because of that we are not able to fulfill the needs of the markets fast enough, and we need kind of different kind of approach in the application development, and low code / no code platforms could be the solution.